This is Dennis, and it's time to go down on the farm and tell you about a cool company called Rogo Ag. And joining me is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing. It's Stephen Roswarski. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Dennis. I appreciate it.
Well, Stephen, I am just fascinated by Rogo Ag. People can check it out at rogoag.com. Robotic soil sampling. It's so cool. We visited with the founders last year, and we wanted to find out what's new over there at Rogo Ag.
Well, we're growing quite a bit. As you can imagine, over the infancy of a company, it's really just about getting great people out there to give you a chance and give you a shot. And we have so many great stories of farm service providers opening up their mind to how this can really improve the situation that they have in making, accurate fertilizer recs, which we know fertilizer is a huge issue right now. We've been able to grow from, a tiny little startup company to now as of this spring, we'll have done almost 1 million acres across 15 states.
That is incredible growth. And I understand that Rogo Ag got a little help from Purdue University's Ag Accelerator. How did that little bit of boost at the beginning help you guys?
Well, we're basically all of us here, except for maybe one of us went to Purdue. So we're big boilers. They were very, very key in, getting us that initial funding that we needed to get off the ground. And, we'll always have a place in our heart for Purdue. We continually recruit from Purdue. I think we have a couple of interns that are coming on board here for us this summer that are also in the Purdue schools. And we're really blessed to be close to Lafayette, too, and to have that, that option, that Purdue Accelerator still out there for us if we need it. We're a bootstrap company. This is what I always love to tell people about, any sort of a company that's starting up. I mean, I wouldn't call us a startup anymore. We're not a company that's out there raising funds. We're not out there trying to get a bunch of venture money. We are profitable and doing things from the ground up and expanding at a rate that's, maintainable and scalable. And I think that's been the key. So we always have, like I said, Purdue, there's not enough we could say about Purdue and how grateful we are for all their support over the years.
And your founders of Rogo Ag are not just simply tech geeks with a great idea. They're actual farmers that saw a problem.
That's true. We are founded by the Fichter family up in the Bluffton area, and they are, they were our initial test market. And Troy, who is our founder and owner, he was the head of his fertility program for his family, and that's how this all started. He needed to have a higher level of accountability in the soil sample. And for those people that are out there that don't know a lot about soil sampling, I mean, soil sampling drives your entire fertility program, and you only soil sample some people do every 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. So if you can imagine how important it is to get an accurate sample of your soil, that's where your entire fertilizer recommendation starts. So that amount of fertilizer that you're going to buy from your farm service provider, which is the third highest cost on the farm, and maybe the highest with fertilizer prices being the way they are, it becomes unbelievably important to have an accurate soil sample. And Troy just found out over the years that even people going out there and doing it by hand, which is the second most accurate way to do things, there's just not enough people. People are human and they don't perform consistently across the day. And you know what? I always tell people we have the utmost respect for anybody who's ever gone out and sampled by hand. It is so difficult to do. There's just some things that could be done better mechanically. It's the same way with auto steer, Dennis. I mean, that came out several years ago. Could people still drive their own tractors and plant really high populations and have fairly straight rows? Absolutely. But they found out over time it's better to let this be done mechanically, or in some cases, if you want to call it robotically, you almost could. And that's the same way in soil sampling. So now that people have this idea of, wow, there is a better way to do it, it's just, I think, a matter of time until people understand that the value that we provide has an immediate return on investment. And so that's why I think we've been so well accepted across the nation.
Almost 40 years ago, I remember doing soil sampling as part of my soil class there at Purdue University. And I thought, my goodness, this is such an easy thing to do, but it isn't.
That is true. It really isn't. And like I said, with so much riding on it, it becomes so important. And, Dennis, we actually had a third-party study done on us, and they had taken their best sampling team and basically put us on the same field, same day, same conditions with our robots and their people. And they did a thorough analysis, 3 different replications, and they were measuring every variation as far as distance, as far as location accuracy, and as far as depth accuracy. And those are the 2 things that really make a difference in soil sampling. And what it was found was that if they measured all the error on the best day, in the best scenario, with everybody being watched, there was still a 14% error on the human side compared to only a 4.9% error on the robot side. So how that translates is that's a 300% improvement. If you think about that, that's a 3x improvement. And the more accurate you are in your soil, the more accurate your results are coming back from the lab. So that minimizes that fertilizer bill swing, which is basically, how much over application or under application that you're paying for. And so, our whole goal is to have folks not pay too much for fertilizer and over fertilize, and then not under fertilize and sacrifice yield. So it's all about getting the right fertilizer on the right acres. And I think when you look at soil sampling and how it's done and just the natural inconsistencies that happen, it creates artificial VRT maps of your field. And then you don't know if you're putting the right product down or the right amount of a product down in the right area. So this becomes increasingly important in the industry, especially at this time. There's kind of this perfect storm, Dennis, of fertilizer prices being high. We have growers becoming more and more tech savvy. They're demanding more data, and labor's hard to find. So it's hard to find people to go out and do this very manual, very difficult to do job. And we've solved all of those. We don't have a problem hiring people. We have a very climate-controlled, amazing robot that basically it drives itself. It always hits the depth accuracy within 3 millimeters every single time. It goes to the location that it needs to go to on its own and hits that same spot year over year within inches. So as we know, there's a very vast variation in soil. And when you have a typical situation of soil sampling or a traditional, you're using an iPad, you're using an iPhone, you're using an Android system to go out to the field and find your location on the map. That's plus or minus 30 feet. Ours is plus or minus 12 inches or less. So that's a huge, huge difference when it comes to, is that the actual soil that is representing my field? And the other side of that, Dennis, is the actual soil extraction. So if you think about the technology that's being used out there, there's a lot of different types of probes and augers and everything else that's going out there. Well, as you mentioned, we're Purdue boys, right? And Troy is actually not only has he been a lifelong farmer and a multi-generational farmer, but he has a mechanical engineering degree from Purdue. He's looked at all of the different types of soil extraction systems that are out there. He owns most of them and our own that we've been using since we started, and basically said, I can do better. I can do better than our own. I can do better than the ones that are out there. And he looked at all of them and said, here's what's good about everything that's out there, and here's the improvements that need to be made. And this past summer, he came up with a brand new soil extraction probe that we actually went out and bought a CNC machine, and we manufacture these probes here. And with his combination of engineering and soil static friction and taking into account so many different things, he is tested it over and over again on thousands and thousands of cores and knows that not only are we hitting that depth every time, but we're getting that exact core out of the ground. There's no push out on the soil. There's no cross-contamination. In fact, it was kind of funny. Last summer, we had to pull all of our robots back in the shop to retrofit them halfway through because we had to make the buckets bigger and we had to make the enclosures bigger because we were pulling up so much soil. And that just doesn't happen in soil sampling these days.
With the increase in input costs, soil sampling will become even more important because you got to know what's in your soil before you know what to add to your soil. And to do it right, you might want to do it robotically. Check him out online at rogoag.com. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Rogo Ag. Stephen, thank you so much for going down on the farm with us today.
Thanks, Dennis.